Hey, welcome to the Unlimited Leads podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Christensen with Funnel Flow Marketing. Today we have the Honorable Marshall Snider of Authentic Us Coaching and Consulting. He's going to be talking to us about disruptive AI and how you can use AI to create all your marketing and lead generation assets in just a few clicks. And before you say, oh, I know how to use ChatGPT, I'm not going to learn anything new. Well, just wait. Marshall is going to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Welcome, Marshall Snider.
Hey, Caleb. Thanks for letting me be here with you today. Appreciate it. It's great. Always great to hang out with you.
My pleasure. Just because it's a fun story, do you want to share the 60-second version of how we met literally 20 years ago?
Yeah. Well, he was just a young wee lad, and in an internship, and I was brought up to a church to do some work at this church and to start a nonprofit there. And Caleb, I just recently found this out, was Caleb went with me one time to the area where I was working, but it was obviously significant enough that I remember it, right? And he remembers it. But so this is before he was married. He was looking to go on some different journeys, and it was great meeting him. And then we kind of went our separate ways. I went off to start this nonprofit. He took off, went to school, became a nurse, right? Got married, had babies, and then through a mutual friend of ours, got reconnected. And now we're doing actually quite a bit of work together, some really creative stuff. And I'm really excited to have the reconnection with them and go from there.
Yeah, awesome. So we're talking today about disruptive AI. Now, your overall experience has really been in leadership and developing organizations and developing people. And how did you, I don't want to say transition, but what was it about AI and the opportunities you saw with ChatGPT that kind of take this whole idea of developing organizations, developing people, developing messaging? How did you make that connection with AI and you just kind of jumped headfirst into it?
Well, I think one of the things you need to know about me is I've always been an early adopter on any kind of new technology or anything like that. And I mean, I was the guy that got at the very first iPhone, and I've had every single iteration of the iPhone since then. So I guess I'm kind of a shiny new ball person at times with certain types of things, especially when it comes to technology and things like that. I've always been about workflow. Like working with people, one of the things you're trying to do is help people determine their workflow and how best to work that out. And as a CEO of an organization, I was always trying to train my people how to do project management, or do their calendar better, or create systems for themselves to work better. And so always open to those kind of things. And I've done all kinds of, I had one of the very first AI email answer email systems where you could program it, and then the email would come in and you could send it out. I've done a couple of things like that, but nothing like where we're at today. I bumped into the LLM models, which is what we are talking about, like ChatGPT, Claude, some of the other models that are out there, just kind of on accident. My son was using it. He's a musician, and he was using it to help him write some songs. And he said, "Dad, you got to check this out." And so I sat down and watched him do some things. And he was doing some pretty interesting stuff that I didn't think you could, I didn't know you could do. So he's on this thing called ChatGPT, which I had never heard of. I hadn't heard of it till that night. And it had come out in like November. And I think this was in like February. So kind of right at the advent of it, right? And so he's doing this song, and he goes, "Dad," he goes, "assume the role of this particular artist and write a song with this kind of feel." And all of a sudden this thing just took off and just started writing. I was just like, wow, that's cool. So I jumped on, went and found it, and began to just kind of fool around with it. And that was before I jumped on ChatGPT, and that was before they had any of the other stuff that's in it now. And I had this like moment where I was like, still moves me, that because I have all this content in my head and all these things I was trying to communicate, and I was able to quickly dive in this conversation with this model and it was spitting stuff out that was crazy cool, right? And so I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. I had recently tried one called Jasper that was out. It was kind of one of the first ones that were out like that, but it was expensive, and I just didn't dive. I just didn't like it for some reason. But for some reason, ChatGPT just got right under my skin, and from that time on, I was, I haven't stopped since that time. I haven't stopped. I probably have 1,000 hours of work in it, maybe. I have gone to a number of classes. I went to this is, any people that say they're doing these classes, you got to understand they're new classes. It's still new technology. It hasn't even really been out for quite in November it will be a year, but all kinds of things are popping up. And so I took one of the earliest certification classes you could take and became a certified prompt engineer, and then found another, was looking on Facebook and looking on YouTube for anything I could find, and I just started diving in and studying this thing and grabbing a hold of it, and bumped into a couple of really good prompt engineering schools and classes that I could take that helped me really dive in. And then the MBA class, the MBA that I did they are one of the first schools to offer an actual LLM model or AI training, and so I jumped back into that school to finish their class, which I'm still engaged in it. Most of the stuff that they're teaching I've come across or learned, and that's because there's so much, it's so new. There's still so much coming down the pike that we don't know, and it is going like this. It's just cruising at a rapid pace as far as all the things that are happening in the AI world because of ChatGPT and the other models that are out there. So it's been an incredible journey. I've learned a lot of things, and excited to share those with you as much as I can today.
Cool. So let's talk about prompt engineering. You called yourself a prompt engineer. A lot of people listening to this probably are saying to themselves, yeah, I know how to use ChatGPT, next podcast. Right. What talk to us, just generally speaking, about what it means to engineer prompts and what the prompts can do for you, because the specific outcome of this podcast is to help people create their own lead generation systems, or optimize their own lead generation systems, or fine tune them. And so I guess talk about prompt engineering and the concept of creating marketing materials.
Right. Well, prompt engineering is simply that, the way that you communicate with the model. So when I say model, the models there's a number of models. So ChatGPT is what we call an LLM, which is a large language model. That's what it is, right? So it is quick, but basically what it does is it anticipates the words that are going to come next, and it's studied lots of language and lots of language, masses and trillions of bits of language, to basically be able to anticipate the next word that you're going to use in a sentence, right? Or the thing that you're wanting. And so there's a number of models out there. There's one called Claude, ChatGPT-4, one called Poe, kind of for philosophical output. Bing is Microsoft's version of it, Bard, and then there's Llama, which is coming out. Meta is coming out. Sounds kind of interesting. We're kind of waiting to see what that happens. But for all the models use a thing called prompting, and prompting is just how you interact with the model. It's how you talk to it, right? And so how you prompt is how you're going to get the output from the model. Does that make sense? So prompting is a skill that you learn, and there are best practices in prompting as opposed to some of the stuff that we're doing. So if you prompt, give me 5 text messages, or give me five Instagram posts on leadership, it's going to give you 5 Instagram posts on leadership. That's what we call just a one-shot prompt. That's just, no examples, nothing like that. It's just saying, give me 5, and it will give you that. It'll give you those, and they'll probably be okay, and you can use them. But when you do prompt engineering, you're actually more changing the prompt and tweaking the prompt to get deeper, more better output from the model. So like, for instance, you might say a chat engineer would use the prompt, and then they would go back and change the prompt to get get better data out of it. So it might be a longer prompt, but the engineering part is when you go back and iterate the prompt and change the prompt and add a new word to it, or tweak a bullet, or tweak an instruction. That's the engineering aspect of what does it mean to be a chat, or a prompt engineer, is that you are taking the prompt and tweaking it, very much like a code person in a working in the computer part, in the underneath the hood. They're gonna, if they're a software engineer or a code engineer, they're tweaking their code to get it to do what it does. So they'll run the first prompt or run the first essence of code. If it doesn't do what they want, then they have to engineer that code to get it to where they want it to go. Very similar to a prompt engineer, is that we are taking the prompt that we've done, we get the first, we'll prompt it and we'll get the first iteration of the prompt, and then we'll go up and tweak that prompt and engineer it to get more of the succinct answer that we want from the model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So you gave an example of you call it a one-shot prompt. Basically, chat, give me this, just like a general 1 or 2 sentence instruction, right?
Right.
Now, I know you can't maybe recite it, but what would be an example or kind of the general idea of a exhaustive engineered prompt?
Well, like, for instance, an exhaustive engineered prompt would be, it would have a number of different elements to it. Like, so for instance, the model I would use is I would start with the purpose of the prompt. So I would let the model know, this is what we're doing and this is the role I want you to assume. So like, I would say, today we're going to be creating marketing content for a high-end car dealership. I want you to assume, sorry, I got a phone call here. I want you to assume the role of a world-class marketing professional. So that it wakes the model up and says, oh, this we're going to do, and this is what role you're going to do. So now it's going to start looking for that element of language within the model, right? Then I would go into the next part of it. I would go into context, and I would give all the context that I can, whatever context it is I'm looking for. So it might be the pain points of the customers I'm going after, the niche that I'm going after, the whatever, the market research that all of the things that I need for context, because the model is going to look at that context to build its output, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once I'm finished with that, so I'm actually writing this out, then I'm typing it out, then I'm going to put then I'm actually going to put, the intention is to create marketing content for a high-end car dealership. Then I'm going to give an instruction. So then I'm going to have best practices or instructions, like, make sure that the copy's creative, make sure that the copy comes in this tone, emotion, and voice, make sure that the copy is, going after this specific. So I'm giving it the instructions that it needs to build its output. And then at the end of it, I would give it instructions on how I want it to be presented. So bolded, bullet points, or, whatever, the type of output I want. And then I would push and I would run the prompt. So some of my prompts are 2 pages long or 3 pages long. Other times, like in the context, I'm taking a bunch of information about a company or a business and creating a text file, and then uploading that text file into the model so that it has that for content. So it's not just your mother's little, let's play a drinking game with it, how do you shave
This isn't
your
your
dog?
grandma's chat GPT.
Yeah, you can get pretty good response from stuff, but the more detail you give and the more structure you give the model, the better output you're going to get, and you're going to, quite frankly, be blown away. I know people are saying that, like, ChatGPT is becoming dumber, and I challenge that. I just say, no, it's not that the model's becoming dumber. It's actually becoming more sophisticated, and it's because of the prompting that you do. right? So how you prompt is crucially important on this, and this is why this is going to be a skill that in the job world coming up, it will be a skill that you will need to show that you know how to do.
That's good. Let's talk. So that's kind of prompting. And when we were in my office the other day, you were talking about you were recently learning, and this is kind of fresh from the front lines, going not just deeper with your prompts, but wider and extracting more information out of chat. Can you kind of explain that, if for no one else, for my own benefit?
Yeah. So, like, if you've been on Chat GPT and you do, trying to think of how to explain this, it's going to be kind of, so just bear with me. So when you do your first chat, if you've been on Chat GPT, it's going to open up into a screen. You're going to have a dialog box that just says, send a message, right? Then you will put your prompt in there. And so you're going to put your prompt, you're going to build your prompt, you're going to put your prompt in there, you're going to have that first set of output. So whatever that output comes on. Now, when you have that is your, what I call level 1, your layer 1. Then you can go into, you can actually ask questions on that output. So the output is not the prompt is the prompt, the output is what you got from the prompt. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you can interact with that answer. So you can go, thank you, ChatGPT, for this answer. I'd like to, so say maybe your prompt, maybe your answer or your output has 4 main points. Make sense? So you got point 1, point 2, point 3, and then that point 1 has some data under the bottom of it, like an outline. So you got, point 1, so point 2, point 3. I can say, thank you, ChatGPT. I'd like a little bit more depth on, so once I go into the dialog box again, and I go, thank you, ChatGPT. I'd like a little bit more dialogue on point 1. So it goes, great, here's some more points. I can go back into that dialog box and hit there's a little box off to the side and change the prompt and say, now I'd like information on point 2, do the same thing for point 3. And what it does, so when people do a lot of prompting, they just go straight down. So they just, in the model, you can just go down, down, down and just ask questions on that. But what happens, the further you get away when you're going down like that, you're going vertical, it gets further away from the content and the context, and it'll start hallucinating. So it'll start giving you answers because it has to answer the questions. It has to answer what you're asking it. But the further vertical you go down, right, the less close to the context you're getting. So by going horizontal, you stay close to the context. You stay close to the context, right? Because your your prompt, your outflow, and then your first iteration off of that. Now you're going this way, and now you can see it in the button. You'll see 1, 2, 3. You'll see 3. It's hard to explain because I can't show you on video or anything, but you'll see 1, 2, 3.
You could share your screen and show it if you want to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that might be.
I was trying to force you to say it for our audio listeners, but
let's just keep it that way because it's good for me to explain it. Yeah. So as you're going, you can iterate it. You can, over on the side of the answer, when you have the prompt, and then you have the first answer from the prompt, and then you have your interaction with that prompt. So I want some more detail on this. Over on the side, you can keep pushing that button, and you'll see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4 iterations of that prompt, but it actually keeps everything in that order, and then you can go vertical with each one of those. So if you can imagine you want to write a book, you can say, I want to write a book, here's my outline, here's what I want the chapters to look like, so on and so forth, and it'll outline and say, here's chapter 1, here's what it's going to do, and you go horizontal by saying, I want chapter 1 horizontal. Now do the same thing for chapter 2, chapter 3, and now you've got all of that context really close to the upper original prompt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea of, and chat GPT is the only model that can actually do that. You can't do that with all the rest of the models. So that's where chat GPT is extremely robust when it comes to those kind of things.
Cool. So I can say from personal experience, working with clients, trying to get all the creative assets needed to build a marketing campaign, landing page copy, webinar scripting, ad copy, emails, all of it. It can either take a lot of time or a lot of money or a little bit of both. And working with you has enabled us to, with the client, really answering just a few questions for you, for basic context, who they are, what they do, who their ideal client is, what's their offer, what's their niche. If they don't have a niche, you can help them refine that. But by just answering a few basic discovery questions, we can create basically everything we need marketing asset wise in literally just a few hours, right? And most of that time is you just in there working the prompts, engineering it, tweaking, refining. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's things that would have taken a marketing person, they have to do a ton of research. We have all of that research now at our fingertips. We're able to craft it. I use a framework, a marketing framework that allows me to identify a niche and then identify the marketing, the persona, so the niche, and then what the market would be, the strategy behind that. I can understand their pain points. I can understand grab a hold of the basic desires of that person, what their pain points are. Like I said, their challenges, what their then we can actually create an offering for that, to actually help them understand what an offering might look like. We can create different marketing copy, because once we have all those placeholders filled up, their unique selling point, their UVP, your unique value proposition, the pain points, all of those kind of things, then we can begin to craft certain copy and things that you need for the marketing. So you might say, hey Marshall, I need, and you've done this a number of times for me, you'll say, we want to create a landing page with these elements in it, and then we also want to create 25 Facebook posts, and then some SMS messages. Well, because I have all that marketing, all those elements that I need, I just craft a different prompt and put in what I need, and it's able to create those messages for that niche. So where niche marketing is really what it's all about now. It's moving away from just your splatting some stuff out in the wall and hoping you catch a couple people. Now we're narrowing it down into actual niches that are really, really powerful.
Let's talk about niching, because we encounter this a lot with our clients that we're serving together. We say, hey coach, hey financial advisor, hey lawn service company, what's your niche? And they kind of look at you cross-eyed, think they don't fully understand it, or they think they have a niche and they actually don't. From your standpoint and your definition, how would you define a niche?
Well, I look at it like Nike. They sell, we all know they sell sport. They're mostly known for their shoes, right? I mean, that's how they started. They started with shoes. But they sell different shoes, right? So they have basketball shoes, tennis shoes, they have hockey shoes. I mean, any shoe you can imagine they have, right? But they don't market basketball shoes to people that want to play tennis, right? That's a different language. You're going to use different language and different copy and different pictures and different. I mean, you're not going to show a basketball player at a tennis court in basketball shoes playing tennis to get people to buy basketball shoes, right? So you're actually thinking what are the pain points of a basketball player? What are the needs of a basketball player? What do they struggle with? What is their, what are those common things that they go for? And based upon that, you're creating the message towards that niche. So towards basketball players, or, you have one that you're working with on financial advisors, right? On working with high net worth people so that's a completely different message. And so I think gone are the days today where we just throw stuff out. We really have to fine tune our message to a particular niche. that we can go, because that's what we can handle. We understand the TAM, SAM, SUM, the total market and the whole market of everything, but we're getting down into that market of 25,000 people that are in that particular bracket, and that's what we're going after to close the deal and bring that sale in. So does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I heard something at a conference that I carry with me, and it's be a niche so small, or create a niche so small that you're the only one who can fit in it. So I had a coaching call today with me personally, and we were talking a lot about niching and how I'm growing my agency. And I said, well, I have my niche is financial advisors, lead generation for financial advisors. And he's like, well, do you have a sub niche within that? And I'm like, well, actually, it's strategic tax planners. And then even a sub, and then within that niche, you have tax planners that work with predominantly high income W-2 or high income business owners or 1099s. So just as an example, so we went from financial advisors to strategic tax planning to high net worth, high income strategic tax planners, which for the most part, they all seek to help high net worth individuals. So even if you just break down strategic tax planners into ones who serve business W-2s, like a doctor, engineer, lawyer, etc.
Right.
Or the business owner, high income contractor, 1099, you could build independent businesses just serving one of those sub niches, right? And
well, I remember when we were working with clients, we're like, you have this, a lot of people have this one product. So I sell a tennis shoe. Well, I sell one tennis shoe. Well, let's figure out how many niches that tennis shoe can go. And then you might keep the same tennis shoe, but the messaging about that tennis shoe is going to be different to each person that you send it to. Like a 25-year-old, the message to a 25-year-old buying your shoe is going to be different than selling to a 60-year-old.
Right. So if you were to give a few pieces of advice to a business owner or a freelancer listening to this episode, and they want to, maybe they're already playing around with AI, but they really want to go deeper, what are some next steps, action items that they can implement after listening to this episode?
Well, I think going through some form of training would be good, and that's something that I can help with if they are still interested in that. Get some training, practice, look online. There's stuff out there that's available to you, but most likely fool around with the models a little bit. Look at the different ones. Remember, there's a couple of them out there. Remember, for instance, Claude. You would use that for natural language and a helpful demeanor. I was just doing some work on Claude today. I was developing a coaching. So I had a coaching appointment, and I recorded the appointment, and then was able to take parts of that appointment and do some pretty creative things with it through Claude, and it helped me create a coaching with a coaching strategy, and really collapses that workflow, if you will. ChatGPT, I use that for strong coherence, lengthy outputs, and strategy. So it's amazing at doing objective and key results kind of a deal. Poe for philosophical output, Bing for scalability and real-time and web access. Bing is phenomenal for doing marketing research, like what is your target market, and doing the research on the target market. Bing is great because it gives you stats, and it's all really up to date with references. So it's like if someone goes, well, prove to me where you got your information, Bing is pulling real-time stuff off of the web and doing a great job. Bard is maybe for coding. It's getting better, but it's still not at the level of the others. And so Bard is not as good. And then Llama, which I haven't seen yet from Meta, but I'm open to, trying it out. So
Llama. Why so much drama?
I think, finding someone in your circle that's using it, figuring out, working around it, looking at different aspects of it, and just keep practicing, but, going from there. And I would say that's what I did. I just dove in. I just got after it and and there's classes out there, and you can type in and say, go into the internet and say, I want a ChatGPT class or a LLM model class, and go from there too. So.
But Marshall, I'm a busy business owner guy. I just want you to do it for me. How can someone listening to this reach out with you directly and have you help them engineer prompting and really get a great value for your investment on anything you want to create, market research, marketing assets, organizational, building out KPIs, anything, or job descriptions. You are kind of a renaissance man, but how can someone contact you and say, Marshall, I need you, I don't know exactly what, but I need help implementing AI into my business, and you seem like the guy who could help me do that?
Well, that's part of the offerings that I have. I do 4 things. I do business development. I do leadership development training. I do basically help manage change in companies and individuals. And then I help AI integration into organizations. And I use AI in all of my offerings. So it's not like being a renaissance man as much as it is that I have some areas of expertise, and I'm able to use chat to be able to do that. So that's really important. So, but I'm working with some companies right now where I'm doing a marketing plan with a financial advisory company, and we're creating all of their content for 1 year. And I'm doing the work on that. So people hire me fractionally. So I'm able to just be their ChatGPT guy, and if, like you as a CEO, you don't have time to do that, you don't have time to step in, it's great to be aware of whichever things you need to worry about. So I'm available to be part of that team to create some of that content or do that. We've done SOPs, we've done job descriptions, we've done mission, vision, and core value development and alignment with job descriptions. Here's a funny one I worked with was an engineer that asked me to do a ChatGPT focus on how to fix the cracks in the sidewalk in a place in our town, because it gets cold and gets hot and it cracks the sidewalk. So he gave me all the scientific information I need for context, and I had ChatGPT create a report for him that gave 5 different strategies with different cost breakdowns, and that was pretty cool. So literally all we need is the context and some expertise on that, and we can grab a hold of all kinds of, it's really amazing on the amount of things that we can do and get accomplished for a company very quickly. And again, like you said, you don't have to learn it. There's people around you like myself that can do that. To get a hold of me, you can just reach out to me by email, just at Snider, M is Marshall, and then Snider, SNI, not Y, but SNIDER, at authenticus.us. So that's authenticus.us. And
we'll put that email and your website in the show notes so you can check it out. That's Snider at authenticus.us. You can reach out with Marshall directly. You could also reach out to me, Caleb at funnelflow.io. If you're looking for more sales funnel strategy, lead generation setup, Marshall's a part of the team. So he's kind of part of everything we do here, and he's fully integrated. So if you want more AI-focused marketing, reach out to me. If you want more AI-focused business development and internal organizational structure, or you want to figure out how to repave a sidewalk, reach out to Marshall directly, right?
Yeah.
So Marshall, this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll give you the final word.
I think one thing they say is, someone said it this way: AI is not going to take your job, but it's really going to be the people that know how to use AI. And so I think learning and continuing to keep learning and not having a fixed mindset, but being open to new things and new concepts and new opportunities is where it's going to be. And we are at an unprecedented time in our culture with AI coming on. And so being able to use it for the good things, and that's what we want to do, is add value and significance to organizations and individuals. That's what it needs to be for. And so there's going to be people out there doing bad things with it, but we want to overwhelm the world with the good things it can do. And that's what I'm excited to be a part. So thanks again for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to Unlimited Leads. Marshall, I'm giving you a big virtual hug, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Bye bye.